Good evening, America. You're about to listen to me, Sergeant Dave, with the Remember the Fallen podcast on KLRNradio.com. After the survival instincts of an 8-ton rollover accident in the Parwan province of Afghanistan in 2004, I emerged and returned to the States with an even more enduring tale of perseverance. As I navigate the troubled waters of the VA system, I gain new perspective and a new renaissance that I will share with you with the fever of enthusiasm to all patriots across the windswept fields of America. All right, you're about to listen to Remember the Fallen Show with me, Dave, where you'll be listening to my guests, jarheads, squids, wingnuts, ground pounders like myself, and an occasional coastie. Maybe not. But most of all, I will be advocating to patriots that get a lump in their throat when they hear the national anthem being played at a ball game. You see, one of us can be run off, two of us can be disregarded, but a show's audience, together we are a movement. All right, we're live in beautiful Seminole County, USA at the Remember the Fallen YouTube studio on the beautiful Winter Springs Oviedo line. Today's episode, we're going to talk to you about man's best friend. Yep, the dog. You know, it's amazing how the dog evolved in our lives over time. You know, back in the old days, it wasn't like that. Dogs were almost like a negative at times. So now we're going to talk about what dogs have done to humanity in the last, let's say, decade. I'd like to start off with, who let the service dogs out? Who? All right, how to do that. The education of a bomb dog. Now, this is close to me. How many lives have a bomb-sniffing dog saved in Iraq and Afghanistan? Can you imagine how many dogs we've lost? Now, if you ever get a chance to go to Orlando Airport, as you're coming out of the airport, coming down Cimarron, going towards Orlando, going straight on 436 Cimarron Boulevard, off to the right, 1 mile behind Outback is Rock and Brews Restaurant. And I built a memorial, the Navy SEAL Team 6 memorial. There were 30 American soldiers who died in that helicopter Chinook crash, right? Little did you know, there was actually one other being on that plane that died as well. And their bomb-sniffing dog went down with that crash as well. So there's 31 great patriots that were on that craft. And 2 years ago, when I did Wreaths Across America, I placed 31 wreaths at that memorial site for memorial of that bomb-sniffing dog. Just want to let you guys know that. So get a chance to go out to Rock and Brews Restaurant in Orlando, right outside from the airport, and go see that beautiful memorial right out front to the right, and tell them Sergeant Dave sent you from Remember the Fallen podcast. So I'm going to give you a little history behind the education of a bomb dog. Okay, so they are a top training academy, works double time to meet skyrocketing demand for canine sniffing dogs. Okay, so they are in high demand right now, and you can imagine on all these airports what's going on that is so needed. Tonight's episode I got from the Smithsonian Magazine, where I'm a subscriber, and it begins like this. When I first met a likable young Labrador named Mary, she's clearing her nostrils with 9 or 10 sharp snorts before she snuffles along a row of luggage pieces, all different makes and models. They're lined up against the back of a wall of a large hangar on a country road outside Hartford, Connecticut. This is where MSA security trains, what are known in the security trade as explosive detection canines, or EDCs. Most people call them bomb dogs. The luggage pieces join bicycles, suitcases, shrink-wrapped pallets, car-shaped cutouts, and concrete blocks on the campus of MSA's Bomb Dog U. Dogs don't need to be taught how to smell, of course, but they do need to be taught where to smell. Along the seams of a suitcase, say, or underneath a pallet where the vapors that are heavier than air settle. In the shrouded world of bomb dog education, MSA is one of the elite academies. It currently fields 160 teams working mostly in New York, Washington, D.C., Boston, Chicago, and Dallas. The dog always work in tandem with the same handler, usually for 8 or 9 years. MSA also furnishes dogs for what it will only describe as a government agency referred to by 3 initials for use in Middle East conflict zones, right? Iraq and Afghanistan. Mary and Zane Roberts, MSA's lead canine trainer, worked their way along the line of luggage pieces, checking for the chemical vapors or volatiles that come off the undersides and metal frame. Strictly speaking, the dog doesn't smell the bomb. It deconstructs an odor into its components, picking out just the culprit chemicals it has been trained to detect. Robert likes to use the spaghetti sauce analogy. When you walk into a kitchen where someone is cooking spaghetti sauce, your nose says, "Ah, spaghetti sauce." A dog's nose doesn't say that. Instinctively, it says tomato, garlic, rosemary, onion, oregano. It's the handler who says tomato sauce or has it happens is a main ingredient. MSA dogs begin building the vocabulary of suspicious odors working with rows of more than 100 identical cans laid out in a grid. Ingredients from the basic chemical families of explosives such as powders, commercial dynamite, TNT, water gel, and RDX, a component of the plastic explosive C4 and Semtex, are placed in random cans. In addition, urea nitrate and hydrogen peroxide, primary components of improvised explosive devices, have joined the training regimen. These odors are imprinted on the dog's brain by constant repetition and reward. Pavlov style. You remember Pavlov's experience when we were like eighth grade in high school? Mary is working quickly and eagerly down the row of cans, wagging her tail briskly and pulling slightly on the leash. This is a bomb dog's idea of a good time. There are perhaps 5 other teams working the cans along with Mary, and 9 of them seems remotely interested, checking out the others. Snort, snort, sniff, snort, snort, sniff, snort, snort, sniff. Suddenly Mary sits down. All bomb dogs are schooled to respond this way when they found what they're looking for. No one wants a dog pawing and scratching at something that could blow sky high. Good dog, says Roberts. The good, a full octave higher than the dog in an exaggerated sing-song before reaching into a pouch on his belt for the kibble that is the working dog's wage. It sounds pretty silly, and new trainers often have a hard time bringing themselves to talk to dogs this way. Dogs don't speak English, points out Roberts, so the only ways to communicate are gestures and tone inflection. But just try to get a 6-foot ex-cop to talk baby talk? It isn't easy. Woman handlers have a much easier time with it. I can imagine, right? With the collapse of the World Trade Center in 2001, ATF, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, one of the country's largest bomb dog employees, came knocking. MSA stepped up shortly after. Since then, there's a prison program that has graduated 528 working dogs, most explosive detective canines. Every time the ATF gets more funding, they say, "Hey, let's get some more dogs," says Jean Brady, who helps run the service at the Edna Mahan Correctional Facility for Women in Clinton, New Jersey. It would be tough to conceive of a better smelling machine than a dog. Its nose extends from the nostrils to the back of its throat, giving a dog an olfactory area 40 times greater than a human's. Dogs have some 300 million olfactory receptor cells. Humans have 6 million. More to the point, 35% of a dog's brain is assigned to smell-related operations. A human's brain assigns only 5% of its cellular resources to smelling, given the low esteem in which we hold our noses. Even that sounds like an overinvestment. It's not just a matter of quantity either. A dog's nasal mechanism doesn't work the way a person's does. For one thing, the functions of breathing and smelling aren't all jumbled up together, the way they are for us. When air enters a dog's nose, it splits into two separate paths, one for breathing and one for smelling. And when a dog exhales, the air going out exits through a series of slits on the sides of a dog's nose. This means that exhaled air doesn't perturb the dog's ability to analyze incoming odors. In fact, the outgoing air is even thought to help new odors enter. Even better, it allows dogs to smell continuously over many breathing cycles. One Norwegian study found a hunting dog that could smell in an unbroken airstream for 40 seconds over 30 respiratory cycles. So you remember the kid in school who could wiggle his nose without touching it? Well, dogs can wiggle each nostril independently. This is not just a party trick. It helps dogs locate precisely where a particular odor is coming from, which is not a bad thing if you're trying to find a well-hidden bomb. In a contest for best all-around nose in the animal kingdom, however, dogs might not take top prize, says Paul Wagner, Associate Director of the Canine Detection Research Institute at Auburn University. The elephant is a walking dictionary of odors. Rats and mice smell at least as well as dogs, and jackals are simply uncanny. For obvious reasons, none of these animals are serious candidates for a bomb detection job. Where dogs ace the competition is attitude. No other animal comes so well prepared for us to do what we need them to do, says Wagner. They want to please us. Among the dogs, the best breeds for finding bombs may be German Shepherds, Belgian Malinoises, also known as Belgian Shepherds, and of course, the Labrador Retriever, Americans' favorite dog, more for their tireless work ethic than any special olfactory prowess. Shepherds are also called play reward dogs. There's a shepherd named June training alongside Mary at MSA's hangar. She will work all day for her tennis ball, says Mike Wynn, MSA's director for canine training. Labs, perpetually hungry, are food reward dogs. Shepherds will accept criticism. Labs won't. The stress of the not measuring up takes the starch right out of them. What about bloodhounds, you say? True, a bloodhound will follow a straight line scent. An escaping convict, right? Say, as if it's being pulled by a string, but they're way down on the intelligence scale, says Wynn, who worked with bloodhounds as a patrol dog handler with the Connecticut State Police. Also, they stink livestock. Golden Retrievers can outsmell everybody, but it's tough to get them to buy into the system. They're so intelligent that if they don't want to do something, they just don't do it, says Wynn. Some breeders are looking to glabs, a mix of Golden Retriever with Labrador, to get the best of both breeds. Bomb dogs may be the most overlooked troops in the hazy, undeclared war on terror. Until 9/11, they were mostly ignored because there were very few of them. MSA started in 1987 with a handful of dogs. By 2000, it still had only 15 teams. Then the towers fell, and from there dust rose, and an instant national bomb consciousness, even though it wasn't a bomb that brought down towers down. After 9/11, there was just this explosion of interest, no pun intended, in understanding the gaps in bomb detection and detection technology, says Kenneth Burton, a research chemist who also serves as chairman of a group called SWG Dog, the Scientific Working Group on Dog and Orthogonal Detector Guidelines. To some extent, people got interested just to show they were doing everything in their power to counter any imaginable threat. There was even a private school here in Miami that had its own private bomb dog. Bomb dogs are everywhere now. Banks, airport, trains, post office, sports stadiums. If bomb dogs are overlooked today, it's because they have blended so seamlessly into the post-9/11 landscape. An explosive detection canine in an airport today doesn't stand out any more than a collie chasing a stick on a suburban lawn. Part of the reason people don't notice bomb dogs is they tend to like them. There's no precise figure for the number of bomb dogs working today. Furton says more than 1,000 dogs have been submitted for some kind of voluntary EDC certification. There are no mandatory national guidelines, but agencies like the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives and the TSA have their own standards. In all, there are more than 10,000 working dogs out there sniffing out something fishy, mostly narcotics, says Furton. Those numbers will only climb. Each terrorist blast sends out its own bomb dog whistle. The whistle from the recent Boston Marathon bombing was loud and particularly piercing. The Boston Police Department bomb squad did sweep parts of the course before the race, but no one holds the subsequent explosion against the dogs. The vagaries of weather and timing, it seems likely the bomb was placed after the sweep, making a sprawling outdoor event like the marathon a thankless assignment. The Massachusetts Convention Center Authority operates the John B. Hines Veterans Memorial Convention Center, 100 yards away from where the marathon bomb went off, as well as the Boston Common Garage. The Hines Center was cordoned off as a crime scene after the bombs exploded at 2:50, and by 3:20, Robert Noonan, the authority's chief of public safety, had called in MSA K-9 teams to sniff the 1,300 cars in the garage, which became a police staging area. I expect there's going to be a whole new look at K-9, says Noonan. For Boston, this is a paradigm shift. In the days after the bombing, MSA doubled the number of its K-9 teams in Boston, deploying animals from as far away as Virginia to meet additional demand. All you had to do was watch the news, says Mark Murphy, director of MSA's Boston operations. The whole psyche of the city changed. While talking to bomb dog handlers and trainers, I kept waiting to come up upon the Rin Tin Tin of EDCs, the hero dog whose intrepid snuffling saved a busload of people. It turns out there isn't one. Well, maybe one. A German shepherd named Brandy. In March 1972, an anonymous caller threatened to blow up several TWA jets unless he received $2 million. All jets on the runway were grounded and planes in the air turned back. Among them, TWA Flight 7, New York to Los Angeles. It was pure coincidence that Brandy was at John F. Kennedy International Airport. She was part of an Army-funded research project and was there to give a demonstration. Instead, she went live. Led on to Flight 7, Brandy headed straight to a briefcase labeled crew and filled with C4 explosive. President Richard Nixon gave the Federal Aviation Administration its own K-9 bomb-sniffing unit later that year. Where bomb dogs have really proved their mettle is on the battlefield. They find bombs on a regular basis in Iraq and Afghanistan. Before joining MSA as Vice President of Operations, Joe Atherall commanded Company C of the Marines' 2nd Light Armored Reconnaissance Battalion in Iraq's Al-Anbar province. The unit had 3 dog teams attached to it. One day, Intel directed us to a school, but we didn't find a lot. Then we brought in the dogs, recalls Atherall. There were French strains around the outside of the school, and the dogs started hitting on them. When we opened them up, we found an extensive IED cache, small arms weapons, and mortar rounds, along with detonated cords and other explosive material. DET cord is the dog whistle of odors with nearly unsmellable vapor pressure. In her book, Inside of a Dog, Alexandra Horowitz, a psychologist of Barnard College, describes the sensitivity of a dog's nose with an analogy. We might smell a teaspoon of sugar in a cup of coffee. A dog could detect a teaspoon in 1,000,000 gallons of water, nearly enough to fill 2 Olympic-sized swimming pools. I love those dogs, said Atherall. They were lifesavers. There's something heartening about this. Counterterrorism and warfare in general have lately taken a technological turn away from boots on the ground. The air is filled with guided drones, and we're heading fast toward the day when drones guide themselves. That no doubt helps save lives, but it has given the face of war a frightening metallic cast that unnerves people. even when the machines are on your side. There may be nothing less like a drone than a dog. It is hard to imagine a more high-hearted warrior. Dogs work for love, they work for praise, they work for food, but mostly they work for the fun of it. It's all just a big game to them, says Mike Wynn. The best bomb dogs are the dogs that really like to play. Now the second part of the show, the service dog dilemma. This is for VA care. Man's best friend can be a life-changing medical device for disabled veterans, but lack of regulation may be causing more access issues than it's solving. In 2013, a handsome, stocky blonde with a wide, friendly smile, Sooner, a 6-year-old Labrador retriever, walked into the West Roxbury VA Medical Center in Boston. As he turned a corner, he was attacked, lunged at by an emotional support animal accompanying a patient. The incident was only the first of several similar occurrences over the course of a year. While Sooner incurred no serious injuries, this experience reflects a growing dilemma for disabled veterans and their service dogs in increasingly common situations. Pets are being passed off as service animals and have injured or otherwise prevented trained service dogs from performing the specialized tasks their handlers required. Sooner was accredited through Assistant Dogs International and as a medical device was insured by the Department of VA. His owner, Coast Guard veteran Alex Quinine, relied on him for balance and mobility as an alternative to using a wheelchair. But because of incidents like the one in Boston and the VA's inability to override national policy at the local level, she stopped bringing Sooner to her VA medical appointments. The VA did update its regulation in 2015 requiring that service animals be individually trained to do work or perform tasks for the benefit of a person with a disability. The guidance specifically states that the provision of emotional support, well-being, comfort, or companionship does not constitute work or task. The problem is that there is no governing body that regulates service dogs, said Jason Cornine, Alex's husband. And there are only two questions that you can ask. Is your dog a service animal required because of a disability? And what task is it trained to perform? Business and organizations, even though VA, are not legally allowed to ask about a person's disability, nor can they ask for medical documentation of a disability or any special certification for a service dog. There's no recourse for business owners or organizations under the current system, added Jason. Anyone can get a vest and slap it on their dog, and that really disadvantages disabled veterans. I had a situation at my American Legion where one of the members brought a little chihuahua, like in a little purse bag, right? And people, other members did not like it. They wanted to know all his certification, and they drilled him because they didn't want pets inside their Legion Hall. And they won. They were able to tell the guy, hey, your service dog is no longer in here unless you can provide all the proper validation of a service dog. And he couldn't. So you got to be watch out. There's other people that will slap a vest on a dog to get in and to get extra treatment. So there have been a few times when people have told that Rambo, that's his name, the dog, he would call an incident in which he was meeting his family for dinner and the hostess told him dogs weren't allowed. I said, good, he's not a dog. He's a piece of medical equipment. And pushed right past to join my family. When people bring untrained dog places, people like me are more likely to have to defend ourselves. Depending on my wife for everything was so demeaning, it made me feel worthless, said Landsworth. Just when I was ready to give up, I became independent again with Rambo. I have a second chance now at life that is fulfilling and meaningful. A dog service animal designation allows it to go wherever its owners need to go, including restaurants, public transportation, municipal buildings, and hospitals, something that is essential to a disabled veteran's quality of life. Alex's credits Sooner as the reason she started coming out of her shell and back into public, said Jason. But as more non-service animals are popping up in public spaces, veterans like Cornine and Landreth face increased scrutiny and unwanted attention. It's critical for veterans to have the protections they need for service animals being used as medical devices, said Deputy National Legislative Director Adrian Adesato. Though we know dogs and other animals have the ability to provide a multitude of wellness benefits, the bottom line is that emotional support animals, comfort animals, and therapy dogs currently are not considered service animals under Title II, Title III of the ADA. It's important for people to know the difference. Unfortunately, the differences aren't so clear-cut. There's a lot of misunderstanding and bad advice floating around, frequently putting well-intentioned pet owners in vulnerable situations. A lot of it's lack of education and understanding. That's a huge problem in the general population and not just the veteran communities. According to the Treichman, some organizations will claim to provide service animals, but they're really just selling puppies to people who are led to believe they are purchasing legitimate service dogs. Oftentimes, they end up with a dog that is untrained, and they're giving an untrained dog to a person who is already vulnerable, said Treichman. They don't know the background of the dog. They don't know how the dog is going to support the veteran. People are taking advantage of this. So terrible. Everyone has a responsibility in this, including the handler. Disabled veterans with emotional support animals with therapy dogs have the same responsibilities as those with certified service dogs to ensure the animal is comprehensively trained to achieve its purpose and to behave appropriately in public. You can kick out a service dog for peeing on the rug or being aggressive, said Treichman, if it's not behaving to the highest standards, certified or not. You can ask them to leave. Marine Corps veteran Joe Figueroa believed his emotional support dog, an English bulldog named Maximus, was his service animal until a friend pointed out the difference. I didn't know the particularities. I thought they were one and the same, said Figueroa. A friend of mine with a service animal and I were just having a casual conversation, and he pointed out to me for the first time I thought they were both service dogs. Figueroa said the benefits to having emotional support animals are indisputable, but after he found out about how extensive training is to have a certified insured service dog, he realized there needs to be a distinction. Maximus support is synonymous with me living, said Figueroa. I wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for him. I didn't care about a living. He's honestly saved my life quite a few times, but he's in a different category. The ADA guidelines are in place for service dogs to allow people like me to have a second chance, Lanford added. Sometimes people will tell me that Rambo doesn't belong, but what they don't understand is Rambo is more than a dog. He's an extension of me. As we come full circle again, a dog is a man's best friend. And this is how we got the cliche. The greatest claim to fame of Warrensburg, Missouri, is that it is where the phrase "a dog is a man's best friend" originated. In 1870, a farmer shot a neighbor's dog in the subsequent court case in which the owner sued for damages. The lawyer, George Graham Best, gave a tear-jerking speech that became known as the Eulogy to a Dog. Gentlemen of the jury, a man dog stands behind him in prosperity and poverty, in health and in sickness. He will sleep on the cold ground where the wintry winds blow and the snow dries fiercely. If only he can be near his master's side. He will kiss the hand that has no food to offer. He will lick the wounds and sores that come in encounter with the roughness of the world. He guards the sleep of his pauper master as if he were a prince. When all other friends desert, he remains. When riches take wings and reputation falls to pieces, he is as constant in his love as the sun in its journey through the heavens. Wow, can you imagine being a jury hearing that? I would definitely vote on paying punitive damages for shooting that dog. Well, that's today's episode. We're going to skip commercials. I'm running out of time. So it's getting 0:30 for the show, and I'm just about ready to go into rack ops mode. But before I relax, never. One last promo. So go to Sergeant Dave Matthews at gmail.com. That SGTDAVEMATTHEWS at gmail.com for suggestions for the show's content. Or if you know a good piece of gear, a veteran advocate, I will get him on the show. Copy me email again, sergeantdavematthews at gmail.com. And you can always go to my Facebook page. Remember the Fallen, all one word. Copy once again. Remember the Fallen, all one word. And you can also go to my Twitter handle at Sergeant Dave at Heroic Memorials. And if you're not into the Twitter bird chirping thing, you can go to my website. And maybe you want to donate to keep the show going. It's www.neverforgottenmemorials.org. And mark your calendar every Thursday night on your phone at 9 p.m. Eastern Time at klnradio.com. Select shows and tap whatever show is running, and that should be mine every Thursday night And you can't miss it. It says, remember the fallen with Sergeant Dave, and it has a star. So until all the troops come home, all right, fall out. Pop Smoke out.